This class is about free will. Let's start with the overview, and we'll ask Gabe if you'd like to read the beginning of our overview of this class.
Sure. While we can't choose our circumstances, humans are the only creation with the ability to choose what we'll do with it, to have the choice to choose right from wrong. Otherwise, we'd be pre-programmed robots who aren't capable of doing anything wrong, but also unable to have true relationships.
Very good. So that's just an overview of what we're about to discuss regarding free will. Now let's move on to our key points. And Sterni, if you'd like to read, let's pull that over here. Key points. This is the details we will be discussing in greater detail. So this is just to give you points of reference.
Key points. Free will is the foundation of our faith. Free will is unique to humans. Free will applies to ethical and moral decisions, not likes and dislikes. Free will is what makes our choices meaningful. True growth and change is only possible with autonomy and free will. Free choice mimics the way God works. We have the power to choose, but the consequences of our choices aren't within our power.
Very good. Okay, and so we're going to discuss all these details further. We'll be able to explain each one. By the end of the class, they should all be understood. Let's begin with the first quote. Sheila, if you'd like to read this quote. Oh, you're on. 1 second. Let me I'll request to unmute. Don't forget to unmute your mic. There we go.
Now is it better?
Yep, now I can hear you. Perfect.
Oh, okay. We have no choice but to believe in free will.
So we have to believe in free will, which we'll explain. If there's commandments in the Torah, if God says do something, by definition means I can or cannot do it, and therefore he says do it. We don't tell things to do something that they have no choice. So for example, you don't tell your bed when you go into it at night, bed, make sure you stay standing straight. I don't want to fall on the floor. Don't do any faulty things. Stay in place. We never say that to our bed because either it's good bed and it'll stand or it won't. There's no choice involved. Now, if you were laying down, a friend was playing a game and says, fall in my hands and I will catch you, you say, please don't play any tricks with me. You better make sure you catch me, because they have a choice if they want to catch you or they want to drop you. Things that do not have a choice do not need to be commanded. So we have to agree that God commands us with commandments because he knows we have choice. But the question is, and these are questions which I'll ask you to think about momentarily, why does God want us to have free will? Isn't he setting us up for disaster? Imagine you go into a classroom and you say to second graders, kids, you guys have free will. You can choose to learn or you can choose to have fun, misbehave. I believe in free will, and therefore I want everybody to decide if they want to learn or not learn. The results, you can imagine, would not be the best. Most kids would not choose, hey, we love learning. Please come, teach us. They would say, if you're living it up to us, we'll be in the playground the whole day. We'll be just fine with that. God gives humans free choice, and I don't have to tell you that many humans fail. We look around the world, look in prisons, look in other places where people made mistakes, whether it's divorce or whether it's breaking a relationship with a family member or stealing, crimes that end up in prison or crimes that don't. If we as humans make so many mistakes, why would God trust us and say, do as you please? Wouldn't he get the memo, especially after the flood, where he saw that he had to create a flood and to destroy the world to put it back to its pristine place of good human beings? Why would God ruin his own world by giving us, which as mature as we think we are, we're still slightly immature and slightly have temptations to do the wrong things? Why would he give us free choice? Why would he ruin his own world? Number two, how could we have freedom of choice if there's only one truth? Choice would be in items that are both good, and you can choose if you want an apple or a pear, or the red apple, the green apple, or within two red apples, which one do you want? God didn't give us free choice. He didn't say, you make the rules, what's good or what's not. God says, these are the rules. This is what gives you blessing. This is what gives you life. You have to do it. Yes, he allowed us to say, I'll do it or I won't. But he didn't give us free choice to say, you decide what type of life you want to live. It's like a parent that warns his kid, you better come here for supper. If you don't come for supper, you won't, either the parent will hit if they're a parent that still uses physical violence, or they'll take away their privileges. That's not called a choice. That's called you're threatening me, claiming that I have a choice. If God really wants to give us a choice, you can't make it that you'll have to do one thing. And then you say, there's free choice. You can do whatever you want. No, I can't. You're telling me that if I do X, Y, and Z, the sins, I will be held accountable for it. That's not free choice. Which leads us to the next question. Is free choice even something valuable? Is it a virtue or is it an iniquity? Is it a problem or is it a blessing? Maybe we would be better off without free choice. Maybe we would never make mistakes. We would be perfect human beings. We would enjoy life. We would do things right. We wouldn't have problems. We wouldn't have issues. We wouldn't have breakups. All these headaches that come onto life. Maybe if God didn't give us this so-called gift of free choice, maybe it's not that much of a great gift. Sometimes it could be a curse. Sometimes it ruins our connections. Why would God reward us or punish us if he knows what we would do anyways? Meaning, if we do not have free choice, then why would God say, oh, you did all the commandments, I'm giving you a reward. You didn't, you're getting punished. There was no choice about it. You don't give rewards to your hammer after you use it to bang in a nail. You don't say, hammer, you did a great job. Thank you for listening. Whenever I hit you, you followed along with the commandments. You hit that nail really good. Here's a reward. I'm going to give you a can of special hammer food, pet food for hammers. We don't do that because the hammer has no choice. When another human does something, we appreciate it. So why would God give us reward or punishment if there is no choice? If we're all predetermined, then there's no need to give a reward. I had no choice about it. Besides, how does free choice work with believing in divine providence, believing that God is in control of everything? Then where does my free choice come in? If God had a plan to do something a certain way, and we already spoke earlier that whatever God wants will happen, where does my free choice come in? What happens if God wanted me to go there, but my free choice decided that I should go elsewhere? Who will prevail? Me, my free choice, or God? And our last point, which we'll discuss, is not only how does my plan work with God's plan, meaning you can't have two people in control calling the shots. Either I decide my life or God decides my life. But besides for that, even if you assume that I dictate what my life will be, we believe that God knows everything. He knows the future. So if God knows what I will do, how can I have free choice? If I assume that it's up to me, I'm the one held responsible for what I choose. But if God knew already in advance what I would do, then I didn't have a choice. If God knows that when I'm going to wake up this morning, I'm going to drink a certain drink. When I wake up, do I have a choice to not drink it? God already knew, and his knowledge is perfect. So I had no choice. So in general, the question is, how can we believe in free choice and believe that God is in control and God knows everything? So let's start here with the question. Layla, if you'd like to read over here, if you were to design your life, read over here and give us your answers in short. What would you do?
Okay. Era of birth, present, family. Well, like my family, the
Okay.
Aaron family,
That's
identity. Oh, so many things. Jew, woman, American, New Yorker,
wow.
sister, so many things. Gender, female.
Wow. We
Place
really
of
have
birth.
someone that's really
What?
It's beautiful. So far, you're really happy with your life. Everything is amazing. That's great. Compliment to your
Well, I think I've thought about era of birth I've thought about it many times because I think so many people say like, I wouldn't want to live in this time. I'd want to live in the 50s, the 20s, but oh, so many reasons why this is such a good time to be a Jew and a woman. So, place of birth. Oh, I thought we were answering these like
No, no, you do.
ourselves. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
you
I
do.
would choose the same things. Place of birth. Oh, I'd love to be an Israeli, like Israel, like
Okay.
born on a kibbutz. Oh, so good. Like in the Negev, that'd be great. Just like live in the Negev. Height. I would like to be taller. I would love to be like 5'8".
Mhm. Okay.
Talents. I'm a very slow runner, so fast runner.
Okay. You want to be an athlete.
I am an athlete, but better athlete.
And
Talents. Yeah. Okay.
that's
That was
good.
so fun.
So now the question for you is, now that you read that, read the last line. From which of the above items do we have freedom of choice? Which one of these did you actually choose? Not in theory, but in actuality.
I chose talents.
Well, even
Okay.
in did you choose talents or was more given to you? Let's say not being
Oh, okay. I chose identity.
right. Which identity as well? The fact that you were American, Jewish. Were you asked if you want to be American or Jewish? I'll give you a hint. The answer to all of them is a two-letter word that starts with N.
No. Well, nowadays you can choose your gender, but
Right.
um
Assuming we believe
no.
gender is biological, the way the Torah views it. So none of these can be chosen, right? Now, isn't that
Right.
essential parts of your life? These are really what make who you are, right? This is what you would call the main aspects of what we would choose, and yet none of them were given to us to choose. The biggest question of should you be born or not? Did anybody ask you, should you be born? That was never a request. That was never, you were never put into the thought process. So this real problem is, how do we say that you have free choice if the most essential parts of your life were not even given to you to choose? They were put upon you. This really makes a difference. If you grew up in Afghanistan with a father that was an Islamic jihad terrorist, chances are you would very much be aligned with that type of society. So how do we say everybody has free choice if the most critical components are really not in our choice? And the answer really goes that free choice is not in our circumstance. This is important to remember. Free choice is not in every aspect of our life. We cannot choose if we should be tall or short. If even when it comes to other aspects of being rich or poor, to a certain degree is out of our choice. What we do get to choose is morality. Things that have to do with what type of person we are, meaning what type of sins we do or good deeds we do, what type of wrongs and rights we accomplish, that's in our choice. Everything else is out of our choice. The tragedy of life is we spend so much time changing things that are out of our control or attempting to change things that are out of our control and not focusing on spending time with the things that we were given as a task to do. Let's read the verse inside where God says clearly what our choice is. This is a verse from the book of Deuteronomy. Moses tells the Jewish people, and Gabe, if you'd like to read it.
Behold, I have placed before you today life and good and death and the evil. I bring as witness unto you today the heaven and the earth, life and death. I have placed before you the blessing and the curse, and you shall choose life so that you and your children shall live.
Very good. So God is saying, what I placed before you, the choices I gave you was good and evil, blessing and curse, life and death. Those are the choices you have. Everything else is not your responsibility. There's nothing wrong with the family you grew up in, the era, the time, the height, the gender, all these things. Don't try to change it. Don't think that there's a problem and you have an excuse because of the facts of how you were created. Those are intentionally out of your control. Spend the time and realize that it's all about good and evil, meaning what type of person you're going to be, what type of moral choices are you going to have between you and God, between you and another person. That is the only thing in your control. Everything else is out of your control. And let's read the quote from the Talmud. Sheila, if you'd like to read over here. This is from the Talmud, Tractate Makot.
Rav Huna say that Rav Huna says from the book of the Pentateuch, from the prophets and from the writings, one learns that along the path a person wishes to proceed, he is led.
So he says, the Talmud continues with the proofs, but he says from the Pentateuch, which is the 5 books of Moses, from the books of the prophets, and from the writings, he brings a verse from each one, which teaches us that the path we choose in life is up to us. Not where we are in life, but the path we choose. And that path that we choose to go on, clearly that path will start becoming the type of life we're experiencing. Meaning the way we start heading, that's the area where we're allowed to be led, and our life will start reflecting our first choice of the way we started behaving. So the number one thing we're establishing is that our choice is exclusively, as we see over here in A, exclusively about morality. Nothing else is within our control. And Leila, if you'd like to read in the following.
In the following section, we will establish that while humans do have free choice concerning moral dilemmas, they are not in control of the universe around them. Free choice is limited to morality and does not concern fate, not even one's own.
Okay, so what do we have choice about? Elia, if you'd like to read over here from the Talmud.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Isn't not what Layla read? Oh, right up there. Okay.
Yeah, right here.
Rabbi Hanina said, everything is in the hands of heaven except for fear of heaven, as it is stated, and now Israel, what does the Lord your God ask of you, other than to fear the Lord our God, to walk in all his ways, to love him and to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul.
Good. So the Talmud says everything is in the hands of heaven. The only thing that's not in the hands of heaven, which God put in our hands, is fear of heaven. Fear of the heaven means, in practical terms, morality, which means commandments of what God says to do and not to do, choices of the Torah. So if you want to know if something's in your control or not, open up the Torah, say, is this one of the 613 commandments or not? If it's part of the Torah, clearly you're the only one in control, and that's why God commanded you. If it's not in the Torah, if it's something that's out of that control of your choice, then there's nothing to fear. It's all already pre-planned. It's going to be the way it's supposed to be. It is not in your power to change. So the free choice and free will, just to clarify, does not mean God says, here, I'm giving you the Torah. You can either keep it or not keep it. This is to answer a question we asked earlier. God doesn't not care if we keep it or not. Giving us free choice is like a parent that tells a son or a child, a daughter, I don't want to dictate every single thing you have to do. I'm going to tell you what I expect. And then even when I'm not around, I want to know, or I would love to hear that you did it. The parent doesn't say, I'm giving you free will, do whatever you want. You want to eat candy the whole day, stay in bed and play on your Xbox, that's fine with me. That's not what a parent does. A parent says, I'm telling you what's right and what's wrong, what's going to give blessing, what's going to make a good person, a good relationship between me and you, and a good adult when you grow up. And I'm going to allow you to decide that you want to do it on your own. I want you to choose the right thing. So God clearly does tell us what's right or wrong. And he says, I'm not saying that everything is the same. I'm not saying that all theories are equal and everything is right and there's nothing that's wrong. God says, no. Let me lay the foundation clearly. There's right and there's wrong. There's good and bad. Not every decision is perfect. Not every opinion is amazing. Some things are wrong. And I want you to, on your own, decide this is correct, this is right, this is what I should be doing, and this is incorrect. not to judge other people, but regarding our own lives. We should not say, well, the thought came to my mind, so I figured I should just follow and do whatever I want to do. That is bad advice, because sometimes we want to do bad things. If we know that there's right and wrong, it's our decision to say, just because this came to my mind, if I think it's wrong, it's my responsibility to be in control and say, you know, this is something I do not want to do, even though I'm tempted to do it. Let's pull up over here and let's ask Sterni if you'd like to read these options.
You are a Dalmatian puppy who wants to know why bad things happen to good dogs. You are a goat who is struggling to understand the purpose of eating. You are a deer who is wondering what happens after deer die.
So is this a question that you think makes sense? Do you think any animal has any of these questions in their mind when they give you that blank stare, like these animals looking at you in the picture? When you're driving down the road and you see a deer looking at you, do you think that's what he's attempting to understand? Right. So the only one that has these questions, that has these options in their life, are humans. It's exclusively for human beings. Animals do not have this free choice. Animals act based on their nature. They have an instinct that they want to survive. They have this drive that they want to live. They want to do things that make it feel good, that give it its existence, allow it to be safe, allow it to stay away from danger. He has his senses, and his mind and choices are just, I smell the food and I say, is this good food for me? Is it not? Is it edible? Is it not edible? Is this an animal that's dangerous, or is this an animal I can overcome? Those are the choices that animals can make. They do not have choices about morality or not. We never wonder, why is it that certain fish attack species that are almost extinct? There's laws that humans cannot go and hunt certain species, but yet if a wild animal kills it, we don't say, wait, 1 second, don't you realize this species is almost extinct? We have to protect it. It's an endangered species. We don't say that, because we say it's just an animal. There's no way he can understand this is wrong, this is right, this is something I should do, this is something I shouldn't. He has one way of thinking. We don't expect anything better from him. Everything in the universe is programmed that way. Water, mountains. Water doesn't say, hey, there hasn't been action lately. Let me make a tsunami and cause something new to, I want something to be written up in the news about me, about water. He's pre-programmed. Everything is exact the way it's supposed to be without any choice involved. The ones that were given by God, this gift, is specifically the human. The human is the one that has these choices if he says, I want to do what's right or I want to do what's wrong. So the answer to this question, do all living creatures have free choice? The answer is no. Humans are the ones that have their free choice. Let's read back in our student book. And Gabe, if you'd like to read over here.
Every man was endowed with a free will. If he desires to turn himself toward the good path and to become a righteous person, it is within the power of his hand to reach out for it. And if he desires to bend himself to a bad path and to become a wicked person, it is with the power of his hand to reach out for it. This is known from what is written in the Torah, saying, behold, the man has become as one of us to know good and evil, Genesis 3:22. That is as saying, behold, this species man stands alone in the world, and there is no other kind like him. As regards the subject of being able of his own accord.
Yes. So this is a quote from Maimonides where he says, the Torah clearly says this only regarding humans, that God created man knowing good or evil. With animals, he didn't create them that way, and that was intentional. Only the humans, he says, he wants humans to be like God, where they can have a choice. They're aware of good and evil, and they can decide how they want to behave. They're not programmed. That was God's desire. So we settled the second aspect, that it's only, first of all, regarding morality, and second of all, it's only regarding humans. Now, getting to our third question, Why would God give us the free choice if it can totally destroy us? We wouldn't give it to a child to say, I wanted to choose on his own. Why does God give us free choice? So Sheila, if you'd like to read here, C.
Free will makes our choices meaningful, though it would seem more effective if humans were programmed to do only good things. It is a struggle to do so that creates a true relationship with God. It makes us who we are.
Right? So to explain, imagine if you were hiring a babysitter and you can decide to tell them how to go to your house. You were making a maze or a map how to go to the house. Would you make a direct path how to go? Or would you make it a very windy place with lots of forks in the road where they can possibly get lost? Every normal parent would say, if I'm hiring them to come to my home, of course I want to make a straight path, very clear, signage all over, walls on the side. There's no chance for them to veer off the road. Why would God make a path for us to travel on? And he makes so many forks. Every stop you go to, there's a fork on the road, and each side has someone screaming, come here, this way's better, there's more fun over here. Why would God give us the free will? So many people are struggling in life because we have free will. So it sounds like a blessing, but let's use this. For example, why are we the only species that are tortured with difficult choices, temptations, and doubt? Wouldn't it be so helpful if God just made us that we were perfect? We only wanted to do the right thing. Or as you have here, not necessarily is it the blessing, not necessarily is it a virtue. Possibly this is the reason why humans suffer so much. We don't have third world wars or any world wars with animals. There's never attack of groups of animals making alliances and saying we're going to fight against other species, completely annihilate them and gas them. Humans do these destructions. Humans are so evil when they choose to be bad. And as one of the rabbis said, that a human is only one that has one foot down in the lowest place of hell, and the other foot is in the seventh heaven. We're the ones that God created with this paradox of being able to be the best of the best. We can be better than any animal and do great things in this world that animals can never think of accomplishing, but we can also do so much destruction. Animals haven't created an atom bomb. Humans created atom bombs. Humans are the ones that created more destruction to the world than anybody else. Why would God want this? Why would he create people that he knows will fail with the option of failing? And the answer is, let's have Sheila read this question.
What question?
Over here on the side.
Oh,
sorry.
Oh, I can't see it. I can't.
Okay.
I don't know how to move the thing over.
Yeah, no worries. We'll get back to it. So, Elia, if you'd like to read, just on the right column when it says over there.
Can you have a relationship with Siri? Why or why not?
Yeah. So this guy, Jacob Katz, posted, he got engaged to Siri. Sounds great. Siri is a great companion. They know everything. They never get mad at you. They never get angry. Why can we not have a relationship with Siri? Elia, what do you think is the reason? Why can't people get married to Siri?
Because Siri's a computer. Siri's not a person. So she doesn't have like opinions and feelings and yeah.
Right. We don't want a relationship with something that has no choice. We want a relationship with something that has a choice, right? If Siri had a choice, it would be great. We don't like a connection with something that feels we're in control and it's only because we decided, right? And as we can read over here, Layla, if you'd like to read this.
God is looking for a true relationship where both parties need to be free to choose. If I'm programmed to be good, then there is no me.
Right? So God intentionally allowed us to choose evil because if we cannot choose evil, then we also cannot choose good. If we're programmed that we have to be good, then we didn't choose God. We were set up in that way, and therefore there's not a real deep, meaningful relationship. It's like having a relationship with a robot. We mentioned this earlier, it would sound amazing if everybody was married to a robot because there would never be any divorces. Whatever you want the robot to do, will do. You want him to change his style, you want him to talk differently, you want him not to answer back. They would act perfectly, but no one, in general, I heard actually there is a whole new industry of making robots as spouses. But assuming the majority of people do not appreciate that, because they say, I don't want something that I control to have a relationship with me. A relationship by definition is not with a tree or a wall or a house. It's with another human that can choose to love or not to love. Someone that must love you back, that's not real love. That's forcing someone. Imagine someone forces another person to marry them. That's not a marriage. That's doing certain acts without the real definition of what a relationship is. So if we had no choice and we were all mechanical, God would not have a relationship with humans. He would have another thing that he controls. The choice is ours because God wanted the choice to be ours. God wanted that we should say on our own, we want to be connected with God. We want to do the right thing. We want to control our impulses and the way we want to behave. Let's read this. Stein, if you'd like to read the human being.
The human being is created, human being is the creature which was created to connect with God. He is the creature which lies in the balance of being complete or flawed. It is within his choice to become complete, and this must be with his free will and choices. For if the human was forced to choose completeness, he would not be called complete. Therefore, it had to lie within his choice, that his inclination should be equal towards both sides, not forced towards any of them, and that he have the power of choice to choose knowingly and willfully whichever he wants, and he can turn to whichever side he desires.
Yeah. Let's see over here, this short clip, which brings out this point.
Imagine two guys, Ben and Jack. Ben is infallibly angelic. Jack is fallibly human. Ben is good, was good, always will be good, and cannot but be good. But Jack is not always naturally good. For him to do good is often a struggle. Acting kindly is automatic for Ben, but oftentimes a tough choice for Jack. So when Jack painstakingly chooses to do good, is the quality of his goodness equal to Ben's? I think we all intuit that although Ben is kind, he's kind of a kind robot. We sense, however, that Jack's kindness is a greater, richer quality of goodness because it's his choice and not one that always comes easy. The Torah records that when God looked at his creation on the sixth day, he remarked that it was very good. The sages explain that the term good hints to the creation of the good inclination, but the word very hints to the creation of the bad inclination. In other words, grappling with our bad inclination, overcoming it, and choosing to do good is considered more than just good, it's very good. So although Ben is good, Jack is very good. Now, we've all been taught in kindergarten that God Almighty is absolutely good. But is God only good? Or is he free to also be very good? Surely God has no bad inclination he needs to battle and beat. But if so, can God freely choose to do good and be very good? Torah teaches that there's nothing at all but God. And although we are not God, we are a part of him. As it states in the Torah, a part of God is his people. But how can a human being fraught with bad inclinations, conflicts, problems, and struggles be a part of God? We're the very good part of God. We're the part of God that is free to and capable of battling evil and victoriously choosing to do good. There is nothing but God, good Almighty, and we are the very good part of him. So here's the secret to feeling very good. Play your part. Live your ultimate divine purpose. Beat evil. Choose good and discover your incredible godly worth.
So a beautiful clip that really brings out this point of we are partners with God in creation. God can set it all up perfect, but he said, I want also that there should be a transformation of bad to good. And that is our task. That is our job, our participation in this relationship with God is specifically having the challenge and struggle. So when it comes our way, it's foolish for us to say, this is a failure, this is a problem. No, this is part of the success. This is how you build the relationship when there is a choice and you say, I want to be connected with God on my own initiative, on my own free will. Let's read it inside over here. Additional answer. Besides for saying that this is a real relationship when we have free choice, there's also, this is how we become like God, mimicking God in the best way possible. So Gabe, if you'd like to read D in the beginning, free choice.
Could you scroll down a bit? I can't see the whole
Okay, so the blue paragraph.
paragraph. The blue paragraph.
Yeah, the blue one.
Everything in creation is just that, a creation with a pre-design and destiny. The human, on the other hand, is also simultaneously a creator. The human being creates his or her character and his or her choices.
Very good. So like the saying goes, we are our own children. What that means is you're going to be in 10 years from now based on the actions you choose right now. There's no such thing as, oh, I was already created this way, it's all done. You continuously have children, which is your own self. Your actions that you do become your children. So what are you going to be in 10 years from now? It all depends on what type of children you have now, meaning the actions, the way you behave now is going to define your character later. And as the saying goes, if I can remember it correctly, we are our own children. Don't forget to do good. It's never too late to have a good childhood. Meaning, you're going to be your child later. Therefore, do good now so you will have your childhood. Never say my childhood was X, Y, and Z, and therefore it's over. We're constantly recreating a childhood, meaning we get a chance again, because even if now we have a bad experience because of the past, 10 years from now could be better based on our present. So it's up to us to create like God's creating. Let's read inside the first source. Layla, if you'd like to read, since.
Since man was created in the image of God, he is similar to God in whose image he was created. This does not exist for angels. They have no free choice. They do as God appointed them to do, and they cannot alter their mission. But man, who was created in the image of God, has this uniqueness that he is in his own control. Just as God does as he pleases, so does man have the control to do as he pleases. He has free choice.
Very good. So you probably heard the verse in the Torah where it says, let's create man in our image. And a lot of people say, well, if it says that must be man has an image and God has an image and we look like God. So there's someone up there that looks like a human. That is incorrect. The Torah is saying, like he explains over here, creating in God's image means nothing else has that ability to be a God, a creator that can choose what he wants to do other than the human. The human is the one that God says, I want them to be like me. They should be able to create their own destiny. They should create their own future. They should create their own world, give it up to them, and let them be their creators. We'll read over here in the second source. Elia, if you'd like to read.
In his wisdom, he decreed that in order for his good that he wanted to bestow on humanity to be a complete good, it was appropriate that the beneficiary of that good be the owner of that good. That is to say, one who acquires the good himself, not one to whom the good has occurred by coincidence. And in this, there is somewhat of a similarity. As much as possible to the perfection of God may he be blessed, because he is complete and good in and of himself, not by coincidence, but due to his true essence. He must be perfectly good, and all failings are impossible for him. Of course, this cannot be found in anything other than God, that his very essence requires that he be complete and have no imperfections. However, to be somewhat similar to God, at the very least, the creature must be the one to acquire the perfection, because his essence does not require it. and he himself must be the one who rejects the flaws that could apply to him.
So to explain, this might be a little bit confusing just because they're trying to give an accurate translation. But what he's saying in this paragraph is God has two choices. He can create us perfect, but then we would be the least like God, because God is the one that has his own existence from himself. He chooses what he wants to do. And God says, I want to create man like me. So therefore, we cannot be programmed. The more programmed we are, the less we are like God. He says, I want man to be someone that his goodness comes from himself. His life, the existence that he has, the experiences that he comes across comes from within, just like God's world comes from within him. He's the one that dictates. He's the one that chooses. He's the one in control. So too, he says, humans should be like me in the sense that to as much degree as possible, we should be the ones deciding what is our circumstance, what is our choice, what is the lifestyle that we can live. And Stein, if you'd like to read over here.
One must know that everything is done in accord with his will, and nevertheless, we are responsible for our deeds.
So we're moving on to the next point. What you just read is our next point. That is, how does free choice work with God still in control? We believe that everything that happens in the world is only in God's control, and yet we have free will. How do the two go together? Let's read it in our student book over here. And Gabe, if you'd like to read E.
Because everything is being created by God at every moment, our choices are really an extension of him. Though we can choose, we do not create the choice, the ability to choose, or the result of our action. What happens as a result of our choice is the hands of God.
Very good. So we mentioned this before. We get to choose right from wrong, good from bad, life from death, blessing from curse. The results are only in God's hands. What happens with our choice is in God's hands. So let's use this as an example. We want to buy a car. We find it online. They're selling it for $2,500. We saved up some money. We have $2,000. We contact the owner. We say, I would love to buy it. We test drive it. Everything's amazing, but the price is $2,500. So we can either say, yeah, sorry, I cannot buy it. I'll have to look elsewhere. That's a choice we made. Or we can say, I want to contact them and say, hey, maybe you can lower the price. I only have $2,000. I'm a new student trying to get my way around college. I need a car. Maybe you could be so kind. And they'll say, you know what? Yeah, we were trying to sell it for a while. We got to leave. Take the car for $2,000. Let's assume you didn't ask them for the discount. They didn't give it to you. So what do? You go online, you make another search on Craigslist, and you're waiting to find the right car. You see a car that's within your price range, $2,000, but it's not as good of a car. You can either say, I'll take it, or you can say, you know what? I shouldn't go with a car that's not for me. I should wait for a car that works for me, the color that I like, and the type of car that I appreciate. This car is the right price, but I don't like it. Let's assume you did a choice where you said, I'm just going to take this car. So you contact this new owner that's selling. You say, hey, I would love to come check it out. And you text the first owner of the car that you like but couldn't afford. You say, sorry, I can't afford it. I'm going to meet someone else. They text you back and they say, you know what? If you're going to check out another car, we're done with having people come and check it out. Just take it for $2,000. So again, you chose to not go ahead and buy the car, but you still ended up with the car because they decided on their own to go down without you asking. So either you asked and they went down, or you told them you're done, you gave up on it, and then they went down. But let's assume you didn't text them, I'm not coming back. You just were looking online to continue buying a new car. 2 days later, you see the same exact car that you were trying to buy available online for $2,000. You check out what's going on. You contact them. They say, yeah, we just bought this car 2 days ago. We just needed it as a prop in our play. We're done with it. We're reselling it just for $500 less because we used it for 2 days. So you end up again with the same exact car for the price you wanted. And so on. Let's assume you contacted a friend. You say, hey, I'm looking for a car. And they say, oh, I know someone that's selling a car. Turns out the person that's selling the car is the person that is selling it for $2,500, the same exact person. And they say, you know what, it's my friend, I'll ask them if they can lower the price for you. And they lower the price. So again, you ended up with the car. The results were always the same. Regardless of the choice or the path you took, you ended up with the car for $2,000. So too in our life, every aspect is already planned with God's mission, already planned with God's system of how it's going to play out, but we still have a choice how we reach to that conclusion. Let's read Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers. Layla, if you'd like to read.
Rabbi Akiva used to say, everything is foreseen, yet the freedom of choice is given. The world is judged with goodness, and everything depends on the abundance of good actions.
He says here very powerful statements, each one on their own. He says everything is foreseen, which means it's all planned by God, but yet we have free choice. So it's important to remember they're not contradictions, because our free choice is what we want to do. The results will be what God wants. So for example, we mentioned this in a previous class, someone wants to mug someone, and they go out on the street, they take a gun, they hold the guy up, the guy doesn't listen, they shoot. If that person was not supposed to die, then the gun will jam, the bullet will miss, it'll hit them in a non-threatening place, or they'll end up walking down a different street and not even encountering this mugger. So his choice was evil. He's responsible for making a bad choice, trying to mug someone, pulling the trigger. The fact that the results were different for this guy is because God has a plan. This guy's either supposed to live or die. If he ends up dying, then clearly God's plan was he's supposed to die. But that doesn't mean the mugger is right. The mugger should still be held accountable and punished for what he did wrong. But what happens to someone is never in anyone else's control. Your life is only in God's control. Your choices are in your control. The outcome is always in God's control. So no one can do anything in this world to ruin our destiny of what's supposed to happen in our life. If anybody does something to you, it's not nice on their part. They should be held accountable either by court or by God or by their parents if they're still young enough. But nevertheless, the fact that it happened to you and not to someone else, the fact that they were successful at what they tried doing is because this was supposed to be part of God's plan, what should happen to you. Let's read it over here in Maimonides. Sheila, if you'd like to read, a person.
A person should not wonder how it is possible for one to do whatever he wants and be responsible for his own deeds. Is it possible for anything to happen in this world without the permission and desire of its creator? As Psalm 135:6 states, whatever God wishes, he has done in the heavens and in the earth.
Okay, and continue. It continues over here.
How is this apparent contradiction resolved? Just as the creator desired that the elements of fire and wind rise upward and those of water and earth descend downward, that is, the heavenly spheres resolve in a circular orbit, and all the other creations of the world follow the nature which he desired for them. So too, he desired that men have free choice and be responsible for his deeds without being pulled or forced. Rather, he, on his own initiative, with the knowledge of God has granted him, will do anything that man is able to do. Therefore, he is judged according to his deeds. If he does good deeds, he is treated with beneficence. If he does bad, he is treated harshly. This is implied by the prophet's statements. This has been the doing of your hands, Malachi 1:9. They also have given their own paths, Isaiah.
Very good. So what he's explaining here, saying it, let me give you a recap outside. The fact that we have free choice is not against God. That is what God wants. Just as God decided that water should put out fire, God decided that humans should have free choice. But the choice of humans is regarding what they do, not regarding the outcome. The results of our actions is still in God's hands. People can try to do something wrong and yet not accomplish what they want to do. We'll use a very famous example of Joseph and his brothers. Joseph's brothers, and for those that don't know, I'll just recap the story short. They had 10 of his brothers, wanted to kill him. They threw him into a pit. They were sure that he's going to be killed. They sold him into slavery. They said there's nothing going to be from him. Turns out, in God's irony, in God's humor, not only did Joseph live, he ended up saving his brothers. He ended up becoming the second to the king in Egypt and becoming the one that the brothers needed him. And they came begging to him later, please save us, don't kill us, don't punish us for what we did wrong. Did the brothers make a good choice or bad choice? Gabe, what do you think? Did the brothers do the right thing by selling him into slavery? Eventually, he ended up being second to the king. But what was their choice, good or bad? Meaning, I'll use an example for you. Imagine I push you down the stairs and you end up breaking a leg. Turns out a day later, because you were in the hospital and you weren't home, a tree fell on your home and destroyed the home. And if you would have not been in the hospital, God forbid, who knows what could have happened. You might have still been in your house and the tree would hurt. Was it good that I pushed you down the stairs or not?
What I'm thinking is no, because that wasn't something that you could have unforeseen happening, meaning that even if the end result was better, that wasn't with the intent, I don't think, to create that good result or better result.
Yeah, 100%, you're right. My action was wrong. Just because the outcome was correct, that's not because of me. That's because God has a larger plan and he works things out based on my choices and based on everything we do. God has his plan, which is ultimately going to prevail. No one can change God's plan, but we can have choices. Meaning if I didn't push you and God didn't want you to be at home, something else would make you not be at home. So my bad choice is my responsibility. Whatever happened to you is going to happen to you regardless. You might have tripped and fallen yourself down the stairs, but I'm still held responsible for my negative choice, which won't change the outcome. And let's read it over here inside. He explains it in greater detail. This is a story regarding King David was running away from his son. He had a son that rebelled against him. And as he was running away, there was a fellow that took advantage of the king's plight of not being able to save himself. And he started cursing King David. King David's servant and general wanted to, at that time, hurt this fellow. He wanted to punish him. How dare you disrespect the king? But King David said, don't do it. Don't punish him. God commanded him to curse me. So let's read this inside to see where David got this idea from. And Layla, if you'd like to read over here.
Yeah. For were he to believe that what happened to him is of the Lord's doing, he would not become angry at all. And though it is a person possessed of free choice cursing him or hitting him or causing damage to his money, and therefore guilty according to the laws of man and the laws of heaven for having chosen evil, nevertheless, as regards the person harmed, this was already decreed from heaven, and the omnipresent has many deputies. Rashi on Job. And not only this, but even at that particular time when he hits or curses him, there is vested in him a force from God, and the breath of his mouth, blessed be he, which animates and sustains him. And it is written, for the Lord told him, curse. Now, where did he say so to, what is it? Shimei. But this thought that occurred in Shimei's mind and heart descended from God, and the breath of his mouth, which animates all their hosts, animated the spirit of Shimei at the time he spoke those words to David. For if the breath of his mouth, blessed be he, had departed from the spirit of Shimei for a single moment, he could not have spoken at all.
So to explain what we read here, in case it got a little confusing with the technical details, anything that someone does to us was going to happen one way or another. So it's never a reason to be angry at someone, regardless of their choices, because God will not allow their choice to ruin my life. So someone cheats you, someone cuts you off in line, someone breaks something of yours, uses it without permission, if we truly have the belief in God, that God is in control, we'll say, yes, they did something wrong, and that's between them and God. But what happened to me was going to happen one way or another. Let's read an additional source. Shani, if you'd like to read this last one, Rabbeinu Yonah, on Pirkei Avot. This is an explanation he's giving on what we previously read.
And so he wants to say that the Holy One, blessed be he, did not give good or evil into the hands of a person, rather only choice, as it is stated, Deuteronomy 30:19, and you shall choose life. And since he has chosen a path, if he is going in the good, God is with him. And so if he does one commandment, it helps him to do another commandment. And on his own, he doesn't even have the ability to do good.
So in each aspect, when we choose to do something good, it's our choice, but God is ultimately the one that wanted that to happen. He gave us that ability and he knew we're going to do it, and therefore we were successful. Meaning if that works in the positive, that every good deed we did is only because God was making that happen, we chose it, but it was part of God's plan, and God wanted us to be able to do it. So too with something evil, our choices are our responsibility. The outcome is always part of God's plan. Sheila, if you'd like to read here.
A human being does not create the result. In fact, he does not even create the choices, nor the ability to choose or act.
So the choices of what we can choose is not in our power. The ability to choose, we didn't decide that we have the ability to choose. God gave it to us. The human being only has the choice, not the results, not the setup and not the after effect. Just the choice itself is within our power. Reading back in our student book. Let's have Gabe, if you could read over here to illustrate.
Illustrate, death of a murder victim is up to God. If a person attempts to murder and missed, he or she is still essentially a murderer. You have a power to choose, but the consequences of your choice aren't within your power.
Right. So based on that, if we were to ask Layla, which one over here is worse?
Definitely attempted.
Right. No, very good. A lot of people would say, well, if you only attempted and you didn't do anything wrong, then what's the problem? Of course, an accidental murder, people would say, is worse because bottom line, something happened. If you just attempted, which has some truth to it, but like you said, attempted murder is worse in the sense that you chose something bad. When there was an accidental murder, leaving aside the discussion that you're also held responsible for accidents, but bottom line, because it's not as much of a liability as something you do intentional, an accidental murder is sad, but there wasn't a choice involved. It was something that was supposed to happen. If there was an attempted murder, even though no one suffered, it's like if there's a victimless crime. Let me ask you, Layla, if there's a victimless crime, is that still a crime?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Right, because it's not the same as when there is a victim, but it's still the problem that I did a crime. It's still a problem that I did something wrong. Police don't give out tickets for running a red light only when there's a crash. They say running a red light deserves a ticket because you did something wrong and you endangered other people. Nothing happened, but that doesn't mean it's not a problem. It's worse than someone that runs a light by mistake and had a crash versus someone that intentionally does it. Because if you were driving your car, your brakes got stuck, your gas got stuck, something went wrong, and you crashed, it's a tragedy, it's sad, there was an accident, but that's less of a problem, and police are more likely not to give you a ticket than if you ran a red light and you didn't have an accident, but you intentionally did something wrong. We're held accountable for our actions, not the outcome. Things will happen in our lives that are out of our control, and for that, we have to say, it's unfortunate, but that's life. But things that we chose, even if the outcome wasn't as bad as we expected, ultimately, that is something we're responsible for. So think of it, an illustration that people say, imagine you have prophetic vision. You're on the Titanic and you know that they're about to head toward the iceberg. You run over to the captain and you say, Captain, I just got a word from God that you guys are on a path to hit an iceberg. Quickly, turn to the side. The captain listens to you, he turns to the side. They still hit the iceberg because you didn't know that 2 minutes earlier, someone else came to him and said, veer off your path, you're about to hit an iceberg. So he veered off the path and he was going to be good. But when you came with your prophecy, he went back onto the incorrect path and ended up hitting the iceberg. Meaning, as much as we can try to intervene and change things and do our choice and do our insight in order to make things better, if God planned that it would hit the iceberg, ultimately because of some people's lack of competence or people's not being careful with the way they should be. But bottom line, that was part of God's plan. Whatever we do will not stop God's results from happening. So all of our choices are only within the story. And it's not something that is completely within our choice to decide the outcome of everything. Which this leads to other questions as to, if so, how can God make the Holocaust happen, which we discussed in last class, and it's a separate aspect. But just to understand that our choices doesn't change the outcome. This is an interesting insight in general. I'll play this video.
Ken, I'm sorry. I can't publish your book. The story's convoluted, just not credible.
Jeff, I've poured hours into this story. Where'd I go wrong?
Great authors know and not know the end of their story. They write from two opposite points of view, the authors and the characters, each vantage point having its own advantage. Because the author knows where he wants his character to go, he's able to masterfully write every line and scene to move the character towards that predetermined goal.
Yes, exactly. So where did I go wrong? I saw the entire story in my head like a picture painted on the canvas of my mind. I saw it all at once, the beginning, end, and every scene in between. I then edited and often re-edited each scene, bearing in mind all the other scenes.
Yes, I could tell that. You've got the author part of the writing down pat. But to write a truly thrilling adventure, you need suspense, risks, hopes, daring choices, and surprises. And to do that, you need to forget all you know about the story as the author and get into the head and limited perspective of the character.
And I didn't do that. Please unpack that a little more for me.
The character doesn't know what will be and may only partially know what was. And therefore he must face the challenge of deciding the meaning of his past and boldly risking the choice of his next move towards his unknown future.
Ah, so I have to write the story as both the author and the character, from above the story and yet also from within it, knowing it all and not knowing it all.
Yes, writing through the eyes of the character is a whole other story, because only then a genuine, rich inner drama of restless dilemmas emerges. The character's life is full of turbulent highs and lows, emotional setbacks, and courageous breakthroughs.
So the secret here is to conduct within me a creative dialogue between me as the author and me as the character writing the story together in a cooperative partnership.
Bingo!
Awesome! I'm loving this. I've got a million ideas.
Whoa, slow down a bit. Here's the tricky part. You can't get stuck in your author's perspective, nor lose yourself in your character. There needs to be a fine balance of pace and peace. As the character, you're anxious to get to the happy ending as soon as possible. But as the author, you cherish being in the glory of every dramatic living moment.
So to the character, the goal is the end. But to the author, the goal is every step in the journey.
Precisely. The author is fully present in every moment and in no rush to get to the end, because his joy is in creatively expressing himself.
To the author, no scene is better than the rest. Every scene is precious.
Exactly. Because the author sees the whole story now, every scene is perfect and beautiful. The character, however, is mostly forward thinking and anxious to get to the future.
But isn't this cruel? What right does the author have to frustrate the poor character? How painful.
There, you just got lost in the character. There's really nothing but the author. Within capital author are two facets in dialogue, author and character.
Whoa! Maybe this is a metaphor for us and God. And there's really nothing but God.
Why do you think it's called His Story?
So this really gives us a nice example of having the understanding, the way God sees things, the way God looks at our life as each moment is on its own. And we sometimes get caught up with wanting to just get to the end, thinking that the destination is the ultimate goal. I remember hearing there was a fellow, he was speaking with a tourist that came to Maui. On the island of Maui, there's a road to Hana. It's a beautiful drive, takes many hours. People go really slowly and enjoy the twists and turns through the mountains, seeing the waterfalls, and it's a nice experience. This guy was a young, hot-blooded, going to get things done quickly, fast, record time. He gets onto his motorbike and he says, I'm driving to Hana. He flies through the mountains. He's turning into every corner as fast as he can. He says, everybody does this really long. I'm going to get there really quick. In record no time, he gets to his final destination. He reaches Hana, and he comes and he sees there's absolutely nothing there. The journey, the trip was not that you get to Hana, and Hana's this beautiful beach resort. At Hana, this small little village, there's nothing there to see. It's the road that's the beautiful journey. It's the twists and turns, stopping at each point that's a little bit annoying, and partaking, enjoying the view, seeing the scenic experience, and relaxing, becoming a part of the environment. That's what's enjoyable about this trip. So this man misunderstood what this road is about. He thought it's just about getting to the end. So too with our lives, our choices are there, and that is the life. The life is the journey itself. Each and every step is the experience that we're supposed to be partaking of. Moving on to our final takeaway, key points. Let's start with Gabe. If you could read again, just the first point.
Free will is a foundation of our faith.
Okay, so if I ask you, do we believe that there is free will or not? What do you say?
Yes, there is.
Right. So 100% we believe if there's commandments, there must be free will. Okay, and Sheila, point number 2.
Free will is unique to humans.
Right, we said animals, they have their choice just within their survival. There's no concept of morality within animals. We don't hold them accountable for killing one another because they're just animals. And when a human acts like an animal, we call them an animal for that reason. Even angels, the prayers call angels chayot. Chayot means animals. Why would you call an angel an animal? Not because he behaves badly, but you could be a holy animal. A holy animal means you're pre-programmed to do holiness. You only do the right thing, like we had in our video earlier about Ben versus Jack. Ben was pre-programmed to do everything perfectly, and therefore he does it that way. But that's still the characteristics of an animal. Layla, point number 3.
Free will applies to ethical and moral decisions, not likes and dislikes.
So
So,
if you like chocolate or vanilla, is that within your choice? Right? No, it's not. Some people love asparagus and some people can't stand broccoli. These are not problems, or you have to be liking chocolate or liking a cheese Danish. These are just, you happen to be born male, female, at this era or that era. Those are out of your control. But explain to us, where does the free will apply?
with moral decisions.
So give us an example of a decision where we have free will.
Well, we can look back at the Ben and Jake video.
Yep.
And so, Jack, Ben and Jack. And so if you see somebody who's homeless on the street, then it's your own decision because it's immoral to give tzedakah.
Beautiful.
Or,
Yep.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, Shtarny, point number 4.
Free will is what makes choices meaningful, and that's because we're not robots. So when we choose, it has more meaning.
Right? As even use the example, we want relationships with other humans or even dogs. Why do we want a relationship with a dog? How come no one has a pet tree or a pet wall or a pet painting? Because a painting doesn't have a choice. There's no feeling of something that is expressing its love to me. A dog, another human, a pet has that option, and therefore we cherish that. We feel good when there is a choice. That's what makes it meaningful. Okay, and Gabe, point number 5.
True growth and change is only possible with autonomy and free will. And I think that just means that something that changes inorganically is not the same thing as someone making the decision to change and do right. That's a part that's meaningful.
Right. And not just meaningful, but also it allows us to become better, right? What he's talking over here about is the growth. It's only going to be growth if I have choice about it. If I was programmed to be upgraded, that's not me becoming better. That's whoever created me, creating a perfect being. Do we want to give credit to God? Then God could create perfect beings and all the credit goes to him. If we want to take credit, if it's about us becoming better, then there has to be the choice involved. Okay, Sheila, point number 6.
Free choice mimics the way God works.
Right, and we said that God ultimately is the one that chooses what he does. All his choices come from within. God is not programmed. God is the ultimate one that everything comes from him. God wanted us to be in his image, and therefore he said, I will create man that can choose what type of action he does, what type of lifestyle he lives, who he connects with, what are the choices of good or evil that he makes. So we're like God in the sense that our choices come from us, not that we're dictated. And we're also like God in the sense that we're creating. We become God's partners. He created the good. He created the aspects of us being able to do good. And our job is to fulfill it, to go ahead and do it, to create our own children, which refers to in this sense in our good deeds. Our good deeds become our children, meaning our behavior becomes who we will become down the line. I'll just point out like one interesting aspect. We see it in the first commandment. Does anybody know what's the first commandment in the Torah? If you read through the Bible, what's the first command? Yes, Layla?
Well, in the 10 Commandments?
No,
Or,
in the whole Torah.
oh, I don't know.
So the first commandment is be fruitful and multiply. It's God's commandment to Adam to have children. Now you could ask yourself, that seems like a very weird commandment to give. No one can have children on their own. In order to have children, you need to be married. You need to have someone else. Not only that, not everybody that's married has children. Sometimes there's just certain people that medically cannot have children. Why would God give us a commandment? The first one, a commandment that we cannot even guarantee fulfill. It's like me telling you, you and your friend have to come here. You can make decisions for yourself. You cannot make decisions for other people. And even within yourself, God didn't allow an ability for everyone to have children. Some people just can't. So why would God make a commandment that it's out of our control? And the commentaries explain that God is exactly teaching us this lesson. It's not about did you fulfill the mission and get it accomplished? It's did you make the right choice? Did you do what you can in order to make the proper choice? The outcome is out of your control. throughout life, you just have to say, I did my best. Whatever happens is ultimately in God's power. And like we read in the last point, Layla, if you'd like to read the last point, we have
the power to choose, but the consequences of our choices aren't within our power.
So the consequences, what's going to be as a result of what we choose, is always going to be in God's control. But God wants us to do our best, to try to make the right choices, and hopefully we will be able to succeed and get the results as well. So this is the end of the class. Just to point out, for further knowledge, we didn't get into the discussion of how is it that God knows and yet we have free choice? Meaning, if God knows the future, how can I change it? How can you say I have the ability to choose good or bad? If God already knows before what I would do, clearly there is no choice involved. So that's an addendum. It's an additional part of the class. We have it over here in the student book, which you can read, or if you'd like to learn more, I can send you this. But these pages discuss that with the answer. But for now, we will leave that aside and we will finish over here. Wishing you all the best, and thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Thank you. My pleasure.